Thursday after the Berlin Wall fell, Germans still don't agree on what reunifications meant. Discontent may even be growing. On November 9, 1989, as the Berlin Wall tumbled, Joachim Binder was the one-night chef at the potash mine in Bischofferode, a village in the communist-ruled German Democratic Republic. Mr. Binder, a maintenance worker who had toiled in the mine for 17 years, had no idea of the momentous events unfolding 240 kilometers to the east. The first sign something was up was when most of his colleagues disappeared to investigate what was happening at the border with West Germany. Just 10 minutes drive away. Only 3 returned to complete their shift. Less than a year later, Germany was reunited, capping one of the most extraordinary stories in modern history. Not only had the communist dictatorship collapsed, releasing 60 million people from the fear of the Stasi, secret police, and the certification of censorship. Unlike any other country ever freed from tyranny, the entire population of East Germany was given citizenship of a big, rich democracy. As a grand, if ill-fated, the gesture of the welcome, the West German Chancellor Helmut Kohl converted some of their worthless savings into the hard currency at the preposterous generous exchange rate of the Deutschmark to 1 Deutschmark to 1 Ostmark. More than 1 million Aussies took advantage of their new freedom by moving to the West, where the most thrived. Official statistics no longer counted this group, who were disproportionately young, clever, female, and ambitious, as East Germans. For those who stayed behind, however, the 30 years since the fall of the war have been a mix of impressive progress, often taken for granted, and so disappointment. A price to pay. The harm wrought by 4 decades of oppression and indoctrination could not be undone overnight. But people brought up in a society where initiative was ruthlessly crushed had to adapt suddenly to the rigors of capitalism. Unsurprisingly, many could not. Mr. Binder was laid off. So were hundreds of thousands of others who previously toiled in safe, dreary, and unproductive state-backed jobs. Despite attempts to save it, including a large protest and a hunger strike, the potash mine was shut down. The one of the 8,500 companies in the East privatized or liquidated by the three-hand, a new German government agency. Mr. Binder bounced around in odd jobs for a while, eventually winding up on Hartz the First, the stingiest of the Germany's unemployment benefits, where he languishes today. Like many East German women, his wife returned and left for a job in the West. Asked how he feels about the reunification of his country, he shrugs. My safe job was gone. For me, the GDR could have carried on. There was no manual to guide the absorption of the East into West. The policies that failed people like Mr. Binder were always going to be subject to fierce dispute. The surprise, as Germany approached the 70th anniversary of the fall of the wall, is the speed with which these debates have rolled back into public sphere. Newspapers and magazines are full of reassessment of the Winter reunification, so Westerners are laughing up memoirs and polemics by Eastern authors. Never before has Germany debated its reunification with such a vigor. Why? Many observers say the debate grew rather 3 or 4 years ago. The most obvious explanation is therefore the migrant crisis of 2015 to 16. Petra Koffing, the integration minister in Saxony, one of the 5 eastern states established at the reunification, says that when she tried to explain to her constitutions why state was helping refugees, some replied, integrate us first. Integrate us. First, many Easterners resented the resources being devoted to helping newcomers when they felt behind. They also disliked the labeling of their complaints as racist. But the refugees crisis merely triggered the deeper shift, says Christian Hirt, the government's special commissioner for the East Germany. One idea floated by Angela Merkel, who as Chancellor is the Germany's best-known expert, is that the East is undergoing something comparable to the experience of West Germany in 1968, when children forced their parents to account for their activities in Nazi period. Now, the government runs young East Germans seek explanation for what happened to their parents in early years of reunification. Long-term owns were concealed because people were observed finding a place in the new society, says Stefan Mao of Humboldt University in Berlin. Perhaps you need to 25 years to realize this. This summer, Mary Sophie Chiller, a young lecturer who hosts the podcast called East Take Guide, had an emotional talk with their parents about their experience after 1990. She was astonished to learn about their daily hardship and humiliations. Stefan Meyer, an activist who grew up in East Berlin, remembers watching his parents' confidence up as they struggled to find their feet in the new society. After 1990, a whole software of life changed for East Germans, says the Markus Kerber, a bigwig at the Interior Ministry. Short-term pain was inevitable. Average labor productivity in East was 30% of that in the West. Kohl's decision to exchange Ostmark at a 1-to-1 rate for the Deutschmark made the swage of firms uncompetitive overnight. Those that survived struggled with the Western rules. They had to import wholesale. By one estimate, 80% of East Germans at some point found themselves out of work. Perhaps True Hand could have proceeded more gently, some argue today. Maybe the unified country should have developed a new constitution rather than simply expanding the Western one eastward. The West might have learned from the more enlightened aspect of life in GDR, such as free childcare and encouraging women to work outside the home. Radical parties on left and right take such argument to a ludicrous extreme, arguing that reunification was the colonization of a bewildered people by the exploitative West.